come out that Russell Brand is being accused by several women of rape and sexual assault. This is an expose that came out. It was a joint investigation in the UK by The Times, which is a UK-based publication. The Times Sunday edition, I believe is what it's called, and also Channel 4. So they all collaborated together on this big investigation looking into Russell Brand's past and looking and finding women who say that he either sexually assaulted them, raped them, or just behaved badly. And we're going to go over the exact accusations. It's very interesting to hear what the women actually had to say for themselves versus how the mainstream media is spinning this. And what they're omitting, I think, is more important than what they're saying. And we're going to go into those exact allegations first. Let's get down to the nitty gritty of what he's being accused of. The four women, now I'm going to read you some excerpts from the actual Times piece written by Rosamund Irwin and Charlotte Wace and Paul Morgan Bentley. Okay. Four women have alleged sexual assaults between 2006 and 2013. Now I'm skipping around a little bit. One woman alleges that Brand raped her against a wall in his Los Angeles home. She was treated at a rape crisis center on the same day, according to medical records. Text messages show that in the hours after leaving his house, she told Brand that she had been scared by him and felt taken advantage of, adding, "When a girl says no, it means no." And Brand replied saying he was very sorry. Then they move on to the second woman. Now, I'm going to say that before we move on to the second woman, because they know that most people are likely to just read the first couple of paragraphs of this thing or the headline, and they're not going to read any deeper into the story. But when you go deeper into the story, you find out that this woman, this first woman who said, when a girl says no, it means no, she was talking about going condomless. That's what no means no. She was saying, I wanted you to wear a condom and you didn't. And when I say no to the no condom, that's a girl means no. And that's what she's talking about, not the actual act of sex itself. And we'll get into those text messages a little bit deeper. Let's move on to the second woman, but I just want to mention what the first one, what the allegations are and what they're omitting. The second woman alleges that Brand assaulted her when he was 31 and she was 16 and still at school. She said he referred to her as the child during an emotionally abusive and controlling relationship that lasted for about 3 months, and that Brand once forced his penis down her throat, making her choke. She says he tried to push him off, and she said she had to punch him in the stomach to make him stop. So he was 31, she was 16. The age of consent in the UK is 16. You might not like that. It is what it is. If you don't like that and you believe that this was sexual assault because of their age difference, then change the age of consent. I have been eviscerated by people on the right. There was at one point, I don't remember exactly what the conversation was about, but it was about, I think it was about transitioning minors, actually. And this was on Twitter. This was a battle I got into on Twitter. And then I got eviscerated by a lot of people on the right, a lot of right-wingers who shared my tweet to, I believe, Lauren Chen, my reply to Lauren Chen, and were like, look at what Kim Iverson thinks. She thinks minors can consent to sex and that it's fine. Lauren Chen was saying to me when we were talking about trans kids, which I'm not going to get into that whole debate right now, but I just want to give you the context. And the argument was minors can't consent to sex. Somebody had said that. And in passing, I saw that and I said, well, actually, they can consent to sex. And I was referring to the fact that in many places, the age of consent is 15, 16 years old. You might not like it, but that's the law. If you don't like it, change the law. I'm just giving you the facts. Don't come shooting the messenger. But everybody did shoot the messenger that day. And they were like, oh my gosh, Kim thinks that minors should be able to consent to sex. And I was just pointing out a literal fact. That's it, a literal fact. And here is now it coming out. And what do you have? All those same exact conservatives that were eviscerating me, burning me at the stake. What are they doing now? They're defending Russell Brand and they're saying, well, it's the age of consent in the UK. This is what I mean by don't be a hypocrite. Just don't be a hypocrite. Try your best at all times to just not be a hypocrite. And the way to do that is to try to remove yourself emotionally from everything. It's hard to do, but just try to flip around the players, flip around the scenarios, do whatever you need to do to make it not emotional, look at it logically, and then assess it. So Russell Brand, was it inappropriate for 31, to be sleeping with a 16-year-old, dating a 16-year-old? Yeah, pretty creepy, but not illegal, not rape. She does talk about one night of kind of rougher sex where she then punched him in the stomach in order to get him to stop. I mean, is that sexual assault? It was consensual sex. She was in a sexual relationship with him. This is, I think everybody knows that sometimes that happens in the bedroom. You know, your partner does something you don't like. That happens a lot. And you might then say, yeah, I don't like that. Stop. And the partners, takes them a minute to stop, or you might have to, I guess, use your safe word or or punch him in the stomach if you're not able to say your safe word or whatever, right? I mean, these types of things happen. I'm not saying that violent if there's violence, obviously it can go overboard. After if she punched him in the stomach to make him stop, because obviously she couldn't say stop because of the particular sex act they were involved in. If it required her to punch him in the stomach and he still didn't stop and he continued to assault her, that to me would be crossing the line into assault. But the fact that she just had to punch him in order to get him to know that she wasn't enjoying it anymore when she could not speak because of the nature of the act they were in, I don't know if I don't consider that assault. I just think that's your partner went too far. You indicated it went too far and they stopped. And that happens, I think, to everybody. And if we're going to start classifying that as sexual assault, we got a problem on our hands. This is one of those situations where when the pendulum swings too far to one side, you have to allow for some room. I mean, it's like nowadays, I think young people, the guy never now puts his arm, holds the hand, like slips the hand or puts his arm around her or tries to, lean in for the kiss. I don't even think that happens anymore. I think now young kids say, "Can I hold your hand? Can I put my arm around you? Can I have a kiss?" I think they ask. That might be, that I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Um, a lot of people that grew up in a different era would say, "Oh, that takes away the romance. It shouldn't be like that." But young kids, I think, are used to it, and I think it's normal for them. And maybe it'll be normal for them as time progresses for them to have to ask for every single thing in the bedroom as well when they're with their partners. Whereas other generations are like, no, you just do whatever. And if you don't like it, you say, I don't like that, stop, right? Okay. But that might be considered sexual assault moving forward after this type of story comes out and society sees Russell Brand get raked through the coals over this. That might have to shift. It might shift how people behave in the bedroom. I don't know. But I would think at this time, this was kind of a normal thing that happens to everybody. So as long as your partner actually stops. The third woman claims that he sexually assaulted her while she worked with him in Los Angeles and that he threatened to take legal action if she told anyone else about her allegation. That doesn't look like sexual assault. We're going to go over that one, but that actually looks more like sexual harassment in the workplace, and that they were in a consensual. All of these women, by the way, he was in a consensual sexual relationship with all of them. This one in particular, it sounds like, she worked for him or she worked with him, but he was in more of a position of power. They started a relationship. He said, don't tell anybody about it because it's in my contract. I'm not supposed to date anybody at work. That wasn't really true. Maybe he just didn't want anybody to know about it. And, when it ended, she didn't like the way it ended. When it ended and she maybe accused him of sexual harassment or something, it's unclear what she accused him of. She doesn't say sexual assault, really. He then said, apparently there was some squabble about that, and he was like, "Well, I'll sue you." Which I think, again, if you're threatening legal action, I think that kind of everybody starts screaming at each other. Well, then I'll sue you. I'll sue you. I'll sue you. People just start to go down that path. The last woman described being sexually assaulted and him being physically and emotionally abusive towards her. So let's go through these a little bit in more detail. So the first one, let's go over the 16-year-old. They call her Alice. So in this piece, they say, although Alice was over the age of consent in the UK, so they say it right there. Although Alice was over the age of consent in the UK, she and a family member who has also spoken to the Sunday Times to corroborate her story both describe Brand's behavior as grooming. I don't think it's grooming if you're having sex with that person. It seems like you've already accomplished the goal. Grooming is like, I'm grooming you for, I'm preparing you and kind of getting you ready for what I want to do to you in the future or what other people can do to you, that I'm grooming you for that type of treatment. If you're already having sex with this person, I don't think that's grooming. You've already accomplished the goal, right? So I wouldn't call it that. It's an abuse of the word. It's this quote, Russell engaged in the behaviors of a groomer looking back, but I didn't even know what that was then or what it looked like, she says. Alice recalls that Brand told her to never send him sexual images, and she believed this was because of her age. Although he said, and then she goes on in the story to say that he asked her, "How old are you? Because I need to know that this is legal." He actually said that to her. And he's like, "Are you really 16? Because I need to know where I stand legally." And she was really 16. Her mother knew about the relationship. The mother wasn't happy with it, but the mother also said she couldn't do anything about it because Alice was of the age of consent. She was 16. So they didn't like it. He said, "Are you 16 for real?" The mother was aware of this. Like everybody was aware, but people just thought it was a creepy relationship. And quite frankly, 31 and 16, it is super creepy. Especially since he knew how old she was. Says that in the end of the she says that, and then she goes and talks about the sexual experience they had where she had to punch him in the stomach to get him to stop, which he apparently did. She then said the relationship ended when Brand invited her over one day and she arrived to find another woman in his bed. Yeah, that would make it. She says, "I was so angry and I said to him, 'Why would you do this to me? This is so humiliating.'" She then goes on to say she decided to speak out because she now believes that she was too young to be able to consent to a relationship with an adult man and that the law should be changed to protect those under 18. Yeah, I agree that that age of consent, 16 to 31, maybe it should be more like 16 with like a 4-year gap, like age of consent is 16, but with somebody only up to 4 years older than you, something along those lines, which various states have these types of kind of parameters around the age of consent. I agree that maybe that should be changed. I agree that 16 to 31 is creepy in this particular instance. He met her mom. He was like totally, but is it illegal? No. Is it sexual assault? Not from what I can tell. Is it rape or anything along those lines? It doesn't seem like it. It just seems like a creepy relationship that maybe he should not have been in, right? And one that, she was unhappy with the sexual relationship. Clearly, I mean, he was like bringing in another woman in the bed and he's like, "You want to have a threesome?" And she's like, "No, this is humiliating." The second woman, she was a runner for Big Brother. He worked on Big Brother and she was one of the runners for the show. She says that she was 24 at the time. She said she once walked into Brand's dressing room and claims he flashed his penis at her. So that would be sexual harassment at the workplace. She alleges that Brand insinuated that she could give him oral sex. She was shocked and refused. She felt unable to tell anyone about what happened and was worried that if she complained, she would lose her job. So that's sexual harassment, right? That is clearly you're worried, your boss has come on to you, you don't want to say no, you're worried you're going to lose your job. Fair enough. Totally fair enough. Not illegal, but certainly inappropriate behavior, and the company could be held liable, and Russell Brand could be held liable in these situations. She said that Brand continued to pursue her, and sometime after he asked her to visit his flat. When she arrived, they kissed, they had sex, they began a relationship, but she alleges he told her to keep it a complete secret. She claims Brand told her that he had it written into his contract that he wasn't allowed to have any sexual contact with anyone working on Big Brother. And apparently the investigators reviewed the contract and Brand did not have a clause pertaining to any sexual relationship. So he lied about that. Okay. Sexual harassment, I'll give you that. That's sexual harassment in the workplace. And that employer, which who did Big Brother? Was that ABC or something? Whoever did that one, they could be held liable if it turns out that any employees reported Russell Brand or if any managers knew about his behavior in this at work, they could be held liable. We're talking civil lawsuits. These are not criminal lawsuits, though. These are civil lawsuits. He clearly, in this particular instance, sexually harassed employees, people who he was supervising or people who felt like he was in a much higher position of power than them. Yeah, that's what that looks like to me. What are the consequences for him today about that? I don't know. During the Me Too movement, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people were ousted. Russell doesn't work for anybody anymore. So he's not with any of these organizations to oust him. So, the managers, again, they could go hunting down who were his bosses, who knew about this. Should they be held accountable? Are they still working at these networks? Are they covering up for other sexual harassment allegations, sexual misconduct? Sure, they could go through and look for all that. But Russell, I don't think is going to be the guy who takes the fall on that one. And now that he has his own organization and he's not working for anybody, But potentially he could lose in this particular situation. He could lose opportunities with other outlets. If he does like Netflix specials or movies, he could certainly lose out on that. And maybe that's fair enough. Maybe that is fair if you have a history of sexual harassment of people in your workplace, maybe you shouldn't be around people in a workplace anymore. And that's just the consequence. Now, there could be some people could look at his current life and the changes he's made, and they could say, we, well, he's changed. And so we should give him a chance. Fair. Plenty of people have done that as well with Me Too people, with people who've been Me Too'd. So, but it's not criminal. The third woman, this is the one who, it's the big, I said no. And when a woman says no, she means no. This is Nadia. I think these are all aliases, by the way. She says, they say here, at a party one night, he met Nadia, a businesswoman who was then in her 30s. They exchanged numbers, and Brand later got in touch, and they began texting and talking on the phone. She said they met up in June 2012 at his house in LA and went on to have consensual sex, but she was unsettled by his glazed over look. So when they had sex, he'd kind of and he admits he was a major sex addict and drug addict, so he got that glazed over addict look, apparently. Nadia alleges that she told Brand to get off of her and that she wanted to leave. So this is one night she shows up to his house and she's walking down the hall and he's got another woman. He's again, trying to get this one into a threesome. He's got another woman in the other room. He tells Nadia, I got another woman here. And she's like, I don't want to do that. No, I'm not interested. According to her, this is what she's saying. She was not interested. So she says that so then he kind of pins her up against a wall. She says that she told Brand to get off of her and she wanted to leave, but he carried on. Quote, I'm stuck underneath the painting and he's pushing up against me. She says, he's a lot taller than me and he has that glazed look in his eye again and I can't move. And I told him, get off, get off. Nadia claims that Brand pushed her up against the wall and raped her without a condom. At 3:29 a.m., Brand sent Nadia a text message. He wrote, I'm sorry, that was crazy and selfish. I hope you can forgive me. I know that you're a lovely person, with an X, like kiss. He tried phoning her at 3:51 a.m., but the call went unanswered, okay? Let me read you the text messages that they dug up between her and Russell Brand, because this gives even more context to what they might be talking about. Because in this story, they, of course, make it sound like it was unconsensual sex, like he pushed her up against a wall and raped her against her will. But let's listen to these text messages. He says, I'm sorry, that was crazy and selfish. I hope you can forgive me, and I know that you're a lovely person, X. She wrote, you scared the shit out of me. You're right, I am a lovely person, and for you to take advantage of me like that is unacceptable. You have a problem. You need help. It's dangerous that you think you can get your own way all the time. Do you know how scary you are when that glazed look comes over you? When a girl says no, it means no. Do I have to go and get myself tested? Last time you asked me condom or no condom. When I say condom, that doesn't mean it's optional. You don't have the best reputation. I pride myself on being safe and trying to make the right decisions. Obviously, this was a bad one. I am so disappointed. So in this text thread, she was saying to him, use a condom, use a condom. So I don't know, they were in a sexual relationship. She's saying, put a condom on. That to me sounds like it's consensual sex. That's what it sounds like to me, that's consensual. What she's upset about in this text thread is that he did not use the condom. She kept saying, put on a condom, and he was not going to do it. And she then says so she was upset about that. She then said that she went to a rape treatment center the next day. She has a copy of her treatment records, which state that she was provided her underwear and other samples as evidence, which were frozen. An officer from the Los Angeles Police Department was alerted by the center, according to the notes, but she chose not to make a police report, saying to the center that she didn't think my words would mean anything up against his. The notes also state that she was worried that if her assailant's name is somehow released, then her name would be dragged through the dirt. She did have therapy at a clinic the following 5 months. During her therapy sessions, records show that Nadia was contemplating criminal or civil proceedings before ultimately deciding against it. However, she wrote Brand a letter hoping to regain some of her power in the process, and she says she sent it to his house. In the letter, she asked Do you know what you put me through, my body through? You scared the shit out of me on July 1st. I thought in any situation I would be strong enough to fight someone off. You completely broke me down. So this one's really murky. This one's really murky because, the fact that she did end up going to a rape crisis center, the fact that she did report, that there are eyewitnesses of this, that there are reports of this, that she did go to therapy for this for months, and she probably has the records of that. But there's also this text message when she says, when somebody says condom, they mean condom, and you don't get the option and you're scary and you have this glazed look over her eye. I have no doubt that she was very frightened. I have no doubt that this was a traumatizing event for her. Um, I have no doubt, that, and it is battery, by the way. If somebody says condom and you don't put one on, that is a crime. That actually is a crime. That's actually a crime. It's not just a civil sexual harassment in the workplace. It's actually criminal. It's battery. Is it rape? I don't think it crosses into that. I don't think we have the legal precedent of that crossing over into rape, but I do believe that it crosses into battery. I do think that there's been cases with that. And certainly if you have an STD and you know it and you then proceed like that with somebody without protection, then that is even more criminal. So this one I think is the strongest of all of the allegations against him. But does it rise to the level of rape and sexual assault? Battery, I do agree. If she's saying condom and he's still not using one, I do think that's wrong. And I think that is criminal and that should be taken seriously. But does it rise up higher than that? I don't know. But this is definitely one that I think Russell should be a bit worried about. The last one is a woman, they call her Phoebe. She was in her 20s. She met Brand at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting before they started working together, and that she had a brief sexual relationship with him, which ended by the time of the alleged attack. She claims that he grabbed me and got me on the bed. She claims he tried to kiss her and removed her clothes as he pinned her down. Phoebe says, and I saw something come over his eyes, I swear to God, like black. His eyes had no more color. They were black like the devil, like a different person literally entered his body. She was fully clothed. She said, I was screaming and I was like, what are you doing? Stop, please. You're my friend. I love you. Please don't do this. I don't want to do this. I think he had his hand down my trousers, but I was fighting so hard and I was screaming so hard, hoping that I could get through somehow. She says, I don't know what the actual definition of sexual assault is, but it feels like that. He didn't rape me. She says that she kept begging him to get off of her, and eventually he did. At which point she said he flipped out. He was really angry. He then said, F you, you're fired. And she says she fled Brand's home in tears, stopping only to grab her shoes before running barefoot to her car. Phoebe, who told friends what happened to her, felt forced to return to work in the days afterwards. But she claimed that Brand, after becoming aware of her allegation, cornered her and threatened her with legal action. Phoebe did not formally report the incident as she feared that her career would be affected. 3 separate sources confirm that she told them about her allegation at the time, while 2 more were also aware of it. I think, again, this is a very frightening situation to be in when somebody's on top of you telling them, get off of me, stop, and they're not listening, and they're continuing to go, and you're afraid in that moment. You don't know. Now, in hindsight, he stopped. In hindsight, she was not raped. But in that moment, she did not know if it would result in him taking full advantage of her or not. You don't know when you're in the middle of that moment. You don't know if you're going to live or die. That might sound extreme, but that's, you just don't know. And now in hindsight, we see the whole end result. We could be like, oh, well, it wasn't, luckily he didn't rape you, so it worked out. But in her mind in that moment, he was maybe going to. And in his mind, so this is where it gets really tricky because they had a sexual relationship. So in his mind, he was coming on to her and maybe they were going to do it again. And, he was just doing what he did previously with her, thinking that we were going to do it again. And she's like, no, I don't want to do it again. And he's like, oh, you want to do it again? This is why this is a murky, tricky situation. They had a sexual relationship at one point. He thought maybe in his mind he was coming on to her and maybe he could get some again. And she was like, no, you cannot. And she was angry about that. And ultimately he stopped. And ultimately she was upset about it and ran off. And then it would be classified as sexual harassment. Now you could say maybe sexual assault. Certainly sexual harassment because they worked together. And if she felt like she was going to lose her job, if she continued to go forward, then that is on not only that's management, management of that company. If people knew about it and word even got around and nobody did anything about it and there was a management situation there, then those people are held liable and that is a civil suit. So that is the breakdown of the four women and the accusations from my, you know, looking at this, trying not to be emotional. Russell, I've been on his show a few times. I consider his show and my show are like sister shows, being Rumble exclusive shows together. And so, but trying to just look at the accusations from a fair, non emotional point of view. Obviously, a lot of people reading the mainstream news are looking at it from oh, he's a conspiracy theorist, bad person anyway. So, yeah, of course, he did all these bad things. And then you've got a lot of people who are very anti establishment and who speak out and are very anti establishment. And they're looking at this and they're saying it's a bunch of junk. There's no truth to it because he's one of us. I try to look at this from a perspective of neither of those places. Just look at the facts. What are the facts? Remove yourself from it emotionally. And this is the breakdown I've come to. I don't know if any of this could result in criminal charges against him. Like I said, the one without the condom potentially could be battery. That is something he may be really criminally facing. Same thing with this last one. If there were people, there were witnesses to this last one where he was on her and she was saying, "Get off of me." But a lot of times in a lot of states, it's not sexual assault unless there's actual contact of some kind. There's got to be like sexual contact of some way, not just through your pants. She said, "I think he had my hands. I think he had his hands down my trousers, but I was fighting so hard." So she's not clear. And in my knowledge, a lot of times that's not considered sexual assault if the person didn't touch you, either like under the clothes. I think is what it has to be in certain states. I think it just really kind of depends, but that one is a little bit murky, but certainly the one I think that's the toughest one he's going to be facing is the Nadia girl who said that he didn't use a condom, and on top of that, she went to a rape crisis center and she got therapy for a while. She might have felt like he was raping her, but she at least wanted him to wear a condom, maybe. And that's that would have to be fleshed out. There's more witnesses in that, and that's why I think that one's going to be the trickiest one for Russell. So that is kind of the breakdown there. I do want to play this other clip. This has also been circulating around. So a lot of people are saying, well, see, here's this Kara woman, and she had a relationship with Russell Brand, and she said everything was fine. So therefore, all these other women are lying. And I just want to remind you that Ted Bundy didn't kill everybody. So um, somebody can be very, very nice to someone. And we see this all the time with like serial killers or serial rapists where the wife is like, "I never even knew." I mean, or neighbors are like, "He was such a great guy. How could he possibly have done all these horrific things?" Somebody can do horrific things to some people and be really wonderful to others. So you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. It's not like, "Oh, see, there they are, absolved of all crimes because this one woman said, I had a great time with them one weekend and there was no assault whatsoever." But here it is anyway. I just want to read this to you because this is circulating around going viral. Here's Kara.
Guys, why is no one talking about this Channel 4 dispatch?
I actually know who this is about, and I have the receipts. I was contacted in June by a journalist regarding a video I made about a certain celebrity and a weekend that we shared together. The video is kind of viral. It's on my page somewhere if you want to go see it. And that certain somebody was, as most of you will be aware, Mr. Brand. They weren't going to use my story because it didn't fit the narrative for their documentary, because he wasn't an asshole to me. But here are some of the messages. Obviously, I will take out the person's name and stuff. We had a phone call. She contacted me for more information and I didn't contact her back because I kind of felt like it would be mean. Anyway, there you go. Put your bets on. It's a documentary about the one and only Mr. Russell Brand. And just a fun fact. Astrology-wise, the lunar nodes of destiny have shifted into Aries right on top of his Mars and Moon. Written in the stars, baby. Okay, bye.
Okay, I think I had to look up his astrological sign. He's a Gemini. I'm an Aries. What does that mean for me? I don't know. But anyway, let me just read the messages that were sent to her because she just kind of flashed those on the screen. It says, "Hi, Kara. I hope you don't mind me contacting you here." So this is the Times or Channel 4, some of the investigators contacting her She's a woman who spent time with Russell Brand, and her story did not corroborate what they were looking for, and so they just ignored her. But she says, "Hi, Kara. I hope you don't mind me contacting you here. My name is, and I'm a journalist at the Times newspaper. We're currently working on a project in collaboration with Channel 4, and having seen a post on your TikTok from a few months ago, had wondered if it was something you might be able to help us with. It's fairly sensitive, so if you had a few minutes, it would be great to have a quick chat on the phone to explain in more detail. This would be strictly for research purposes only, nothing at all for publication. Please let me know if this could work." Goes on to say, "The project we're working on is looking into a male celebrity and his behavior towards women over the years. The reason it's hard for us to go into too much detail is because it's at a sensitive stage, and we're keen to protect everyone involved so far. So, for instance, we're worried about our messages being shared more widely. It's why it's much easier for us to speak to people over the phone and helps to build up trust and reassurance. I really hope this helps a bit. But above all, it's nothing for you to be worried about." So, um, again, just because this one person had a good experience with him doesn't mean that the other ones who had bad experience don't exist. A person is not all good or all bad to the people that they encounter. Some people have great experiences and other people have horrific experiences depending on the person. Um, but so we just have to be careful in situations like this on, the accusations. And I really always like to look deep at what are the accusers actually saying? What evidence is there against the person? I do think Russell's facing some problems. I'm not going to lie. I think that there's going to be some issues here for him. I don't think they're going to result in rape charges or as bad of charges at this point. Now, there could be more women that come forward. But at this point, I doubt it's going to get to the level that, of course, a lot in the mainstream would love, because they would love nothing more but to silence Russell Brand and shut him up. And another thing that we have to ask is, why are they coming out now with all of this? I mean, this has been going, the accusers are from 2006 to 2013, 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. There's now another accuser that's come out in 2003. I don't know the details of that one. They just say accuser. They call all of these women like sexual assault accusers. And as we just went over, not really the right characterization completely. And so I don't know what the 2003 person has to say, but that's 20 years ago. Why are they coming out with this now? Now it's because he's speaking out against the establishment. You never saw Jeffrey Epstein speak out against the establishment, did you? you know, so this is what they do. They come after people. They're just trying to get them, and they found some dirt, and they're trying to get him with it. Now, that doesn't mean, oh, well, just because the establishment is after him because he's anti-establishment, then we should just ignore it. That's not the way it works. They're using this as a word of caution to anyone who speaks out against the establishment. And a lot of ways it works. It works. There's a lot of people who want to speak up, but they got some dark skeletons in the closet and they don't want this type of thing to happen to them. And so they're not going to come up and speak. The answer is not, I don't think it goes either. I don't think the answer is, well, then just ignore the establishment and all of their accusations, because some of the accusations are serious and they should be heard. But at the same time, I hope that this doesn't scare people away from speaking up against the establishment for fear of what the establishment might dig up and try to throw at them. Because as we also see, sometimes they inflate those accusations into something they are not. All right, I got to tell you about another really great product, Field of Greens. The shredded lettuce in a double-double and the fruit filling in a donut do not count as your fruits and vegetables that you're supposed to be getting every day. You got to get 5 servings of fruits and veggies every single day. I know I don't get that, but I will share with you that the Mayo Clinic says if you want to prevent heart disease, if you want to lower blood pressure and cholesterol, then you got to eat those servings of fruits and veggies every day. And that's why I take Field of Greens. So unlike others, each fruit and each vegetable in Field of Greens was medically selected by doctors to support your vital organs like heart, lungs, kidneys, and immune system. Flu season is here, and I trust Field of Greens help me stay healthy. Field of Greens works fast. You will feel more energy. You will notice your skin and hairs and your hair, nails, skin, all that looking healthy too. If you don't always eat right and you don't always exercise, then join me and take Field of Greens, and let me get you started with 15% off your first order. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code Kim. That's promo code Kim at fieldofgreens.com, and start getting yourself healthy. Feel healthy. All right, guys, before we end, I want to hear from you. I do want to hear from you about your thoughts on this Russell Brand saga and what is going on there and what you thought of the breakdown I did here for you tonight. Email me because I want to hear from you, kim@kimiverson.com. And I will be reading these in my locals community. I'm going to be going through them on Wednesday. So I definitely want to hear from you. So just send me in your emails and then join my locals community. That button is down below. And on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing, going over a lot of the emails that you send me throughout the week and live streaming about that. So join me Wednesday, join that locals community, send me your emails, kim@kimiverson.com. Otherwise, guys, I'm out of here. I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we couldn't get to all the other great topics we had tonight, but I just kept talking about this one, so there it is. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.